Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I had a specific request today, just one, from a lovely lady I think called Isabel. Anyway, I won't say her full username on the website that I asked the Q&A. And yeah, she asked me a couple of questions about the Courtauld, so I'm making this video for anyone really who's due to go, just to help you out, make you feel a little bit less nervous, because really there's nothing to be nervous about, I promise you. And I mean, I guess it can be nerve-wracking meeting new people, moving to a new city if you don't already live in London. You know, I do get it, I've been in your shoes, but you know, in terms of the institution and what they're about and what they do and the lesson and the curriculum and stuff like that, there's really nothing to worry about. But anyway, let's get straight into the video and I will get answering those questions. Okay, so I'm just checking my phone. The first question was, okay, it was worded, hi, I was wondering what the contact hours were like in the first and subsequent years. And then the next question, which I'll get to later. So, the contact hours are, well, I'll be honest, I don't remember fully what the contact hours were like. I know that in the second and third years there was a few complaints about not having enough contact hours or enough coursework or something like that to get the people's money's worth, but I personally felt that I had got my money's worth. Yeah, in terms of contact hours, they definitely addressed that problem, by the way, too. They gave us more coursework and they gave us another curriculum, particularly for the third year. When it came to student feedback, after each year had finished, we give feedback to the faculty. You have the opportunity to tell them your thoughts and what you thought about the year and the management and things like that. So they definitely are receptive to that and they listen to what you have to say and they care about what you say, which is much better than some institutions, some of which I won't name. And yeah, they're definitely responsive to what you have to say. So if you do have any kind of concerns about contact hours, they will address that in most likelihood. I'd be surprised if they didn't. But in terms of actual contact hours, in terms of timing and how many hours you actually got, I know for the first year you have a foundations course. I obviously can't speak for current students now because I'm not enrolled there anymore. I only did my BA there for 3 years. But when I was there, I can only speak on behalf of my experience of when I was there myself. And for the first year when I was there, there was a foundation course and there were 2 special topics we did. I did foundation, the foundation course out the whole year, and then 17th century art for the first kind of term from like autumn/winter, and then no autumn term, sorry, and then for the winter term coming into spring I did postmodern and modern architecture in London. So both my courses were London specific because the 17th century course was about London collections. So we'd visit the National Gallery and we'd have trips, and you know, so it's easy to say, okay, the contact hours were X amount of time, but when you take into account how long it takes the teacher to get there, to travel to and from the destination if you're going on a field trip for your course, just to a gallery somewhere, you do often end up getting more time than you expect because we run over. So it's hard to say exactly, give you an amount of hours and an exact number because it really does just vary. But from what I remember with the foundations course, we had three 1-hour lectures a week. So that was, yeah, was it an hour and a half? I don't want to give you the wrong impression. I should have asked my friends before making this video, maybe they would have remembered more than I do. But as far as I can tell, disclaimer here, it might not be accurate, you got 3 1-hour lectures for the foundations course. And then on top of that you got your readings, and then you had your your sessions for your special courses, where I did 17th century art first and then I did postmodern and modern architecture in London, and those were quite long, those were very long. So I'm afraid I can't give you an exact number in terms of that, but I definitely kept busy. I remember my first year being super busy, every year being super busy, every single year actually, with you know, readings and spending time in the library and going to class and speaking to teachers and tutors. You won't be lost for things to do is what I'm saying. The only time that you might be lost for things to do is during freshers, because from my recollection, when I was there at least, again I can only speak about that time and that point in time because that's when I was there. I don't know if it might have changed or not. But you definitely had a lot of time during freshers to get sort of inducted and enrolled into class, but I think that's because they want to give you time to get used to things. It wasn't like a lack of management or a lack of planning or anything like that, like, you know, you might assume. I think they just wanted you to get used to London and living there and living as a student. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Sorry to give it such a long-winded response. Yeah, I will definitely try and get back to you directly when I've asked my friend about the contact hours. The next thing is, are there any opportunities to travel abroad? Now, simple answer is no. But that doesn't mean that you can't go abroad during your holidays. You can't go, like, I know for my dissertation, when I was doing my final year dissertation in third year, I decided to travel to Germany with my student loan. I just chose to budget for that trip, and I went to go see the archive and get some primary research done. If you're not aware, you'll learn about it probably in the induction, but primary and secondary research, you mostly get secondary research by reading books and sources and things on the internet, but primary research is stuff you actually do yourself. You conduct that research yourself. So you go see an archivist or a gallerist, or you speak to someone who knew the artist, or things like that, and often you'll find the most interesting research and the most insightful and useful research you get done is when you try and do it yourself. Now, I'm aware that some research topics it isn't possible to either travel to that place, maybe it's too far, too expensive, or maybe everyone that knew the artist has sadly passed away. You know, there are so many constraints, but I was just lucky enough to be able to find an institution that had specialised in the artist that I wanted to study and research, and there was someone who specialised in that artist who worked at this place in Germany. So I went to Germany, and that wasn't anything to do with the course itself, but you know, I chose to go. I chose to invest in my education and really try and do well in my dissertation, and you know, luckily I had a great time. So no, there aren't any opportunities to travel abroad necessarily, to study abroad, but there are things like field trips. Like, I'm thinking as I speak right now, things like when I was doing surrealism in third year, for one of my modules, which I did, I think got the best mark in that one actually. No, I didn't. Wait. I got one of my best marks in surrealism. And that was interesting because we got to visit Paris. And I'm just thinking about any other times we visited Paris on a field trip. That was the one that I remember, and we got to visit all of Paris, all the institutions in Paris, the galleries. We got to have, you know, an associate lecturer who was lovely, by the way. He was lovely person, and he would talk us through the artworks as we were looking at them. So we actually got to see the works in the flesh, and then have a world-class, associate lecturer, someone studying at a world-class institution, talk to us about that artwork. So I suppose, yes, there are opportunities to study abroad, but when I think of studying abroad, I think that, okay, you actually spend a whole year there, sort of thing, and you live there and you reside there, and you just really take residence there while you're studying abroad. No, there isn't that, but there are field trips, like the one I mentioned in Paris, and when I went to Germany, but that was one that I took up myself on my own initiative. So I suppose the moral of the story is what I'm trying to say to answer your question, your second question, is Courtauld is what you make it. It really is what you make it. If you are fortunate enough to be able to afford, or you have a student loan or something like that, and you can afford to go somewhere, even if it's just somewhere in London, just to visit, you will find that it will be a more kind of enriching experience for you. And then on top of that you have the library resources, which are fantastic. I can't say enough good things about the library. It really was so good in Somerset House. I haven't been that many times to the one in Vernon Square near King's Cross. I've only been a couple of times, but it seems perfectly fine. It seems like a perfectly good library. And yeah, I hope you have a great time while you're there. Third question. Do you think there is a disadvantage to being in this new location, which I assume is Vernon Square? I'm assuming is Vernon Square, due to the refurbishments taking place. I'll be honest, I can't answer that question. If I think there's an advantage to being in this new location that you say. That's hard to answer. I didn't study while I was in Vernon Square. I can tell you, which leads on to the next question, I think. Do you know what the accommodation on the Strand is like, and would you recommend self-catered? And by that she means self-catered means where you basically feed yourself and you don't get given meals while you're studying. Now that's an interesting question. I can answer this one. I lived in halls in the Strand for a bit. I didn't live there the whole year. But I lived there for a bit, and I can tell you it's a fantastic location. The rent is very expensive, which is not the Courtauld's fault. It's just because it's in central London. That's just, you know, that is just literally a fact of the matter of living in central London. The rent is going to be extremely high. So yeah, I mean, living in the Strand, the location is fantastic. And do you know what the accommodation on the Strand is like, and would you recommend self-catered? The refurbished, when the room I was in when I was in Duchy House, which is what they call it on the Strand, Duchy House. When I was in Duchy House, they ended up, I don't know when they did this, but at a later point they ended up actually taking my room out and making the kitchen bigger on the first floor. My room was very small, but I enjoyed being there. Well, that's a lie. I didn't have the best time there, but that wasn't because of... I enjoyed being at the Courtauld. I enjoyed, you know, living in such a fantastic area and being in such a great position in London, being able to visit all the hotspots and, you know, see galleries, which will be virtually on my doorstep. I enjoyed that aspect of it, but it was more... Just in my personal experience, this is not representative of everyone else. I didn't enjoy being there because more of the living situation that was apparent there that I found that I had to deal with. But I think you can get that in any halls. It's not just specific to Duchy House per se. That is something that, how can I say, is just a fact of the matter of living in such close proximity with other people. I think a lot of people who I was boarding with when I was at Duchy House, they had boarded at boarding school before, so they were used to living in close proximity with other people, and I wasn't. I'd lived at home until 18 doing my A-levels and then moved to London. I found it extremely hard socially, but practically Duchy House was very good. The difficulties I came across were more to do with just the behaviour of some people in the halls, but the people that you're studying with, who you'll be studying with, they could be completely different. In fact, they probably will be. And everyone's different, you know. Everyone's going to deal with different things in different ways. And so what I can answer on the good point is that Duchy House, practically speaking, is a fantastic place. And with regards to self-catered or not, Duchy House is self-catered. You don't have someone cooking your meals, serving them to you, which I'll get to in a minute. The first year you have Duchy House, you can apply to live in Duchy House. It might have changed, but this is when I was there. With it moving to Vernon Square, the whole university moving to Vernon Square, I don't know if things have changed, but when I was there, you could opt for Duchy House for the first year, and that was for first year students and master students, I think, who lived in America or far away from home, or far away from a home country somewhere. And for people who were just basically in most need, who needed to settle into London and needed that a bit of support to be closer to the university. But with it being now in Vernon Square, I don't know what the practicalities of that is. The practicalities of that are, sorry. And yeah, I mean, it's hard because the whole everything's changed with it moving to Vernon Square. But what I did find interesting was my living arrangements throughout my degree were the hardest part, honestly the hardest part of the whole degree. But that was just my experience. I enjoyed the experience of Courtauld academically, kind of practically, in so many other ways academically, you know. I learnt so much while I was there, and it was such a great time academically, but in terms of living arrangements I found it very tricky. So one piece of advice that I would give to you is try and make a close bond of friends while you're there. I made a group of friends, but the way things ended up working out was that they'd sort of already made arrangements to move in with other people, and I don't know, it was very complicated. So if you can, make a close bond of friends while you're there, and try and arrange somewhere to live for second and third year, because I know that the university didn't really do much to help us find a place in for second year. But when I struggled in my third year, I contacted student services, and they really did try. In all fairness, they really did try to help me. They referred me to websites, to people I could call, to places that I could find within my budget, and they really did, yeah, they really did try. So it can be tricky finding accommodation in London. That's just a fact of the matter of a London university, wherever you go, whether it's Brunel University, or is that in London? I think it is. Or if it's UCL, or if it's Queen Mary's, or wherever it is, it's always going to be hard to find accommodation because space is such a premium. Space is just such a premium in London. So try and find a close knit of friends, and yeah, you know, just try your best with that aspect of things. But don't stress about it in your first year. Just try and enjoy your first year, because the whole point of Duchy House being there is to make sure that you settle into London well, and that you feel as much at home as you possibly can. And when it comes to self-catered, which I was referring to earlier, self-catered accommodation is basically a lot better if you're in third year. If you can get if you can get catered accommodation in third year, that is a lot better. I didn't have that, but I know with the workload I had in third year, I would have really appreciated having my meals cooked for me. But then again, that's just me. If you're with friends who want to be self-catered, it might be easy for you to be in self-catered accommodation with a group of friends who will cook on different nights and alternate, you know, the cooking duties between each other day to day, and that might help you and that might work for you. My advice is not to think about things too much, and to not, I don't know if I've answered these questions in the best way I can. I definitely should have asked my friends about the contact hours, but I definitely know that when I was at Courtauld, I had my difficulties. I can't lie. I can't say, you know, everything was perfect, because it wasn't. I definitely found first year very difficult, but that was mostly because I was so far from my hometown, and various other things. But yeah, definitely kind of making a group of friends and a support network in London definitely helps, and it is what you make it. So if you can invest in your education as much as you can, visiting places, whether it's just in London or abroad, if you can afford that, then in which case great. And yeah, just not overthinking things, because you're only going to do your degree once, like most people anyway. Some people do 2 degrees or 3 or 4 degrees. Most people just do 1 degree, so it is a once in a lifetime time in your life. And just try and enjoy it. You know, Courtauld is by and large a really great institution. And when I had to move out of Duchy, they were supportive. Even though I'd signed a contract and a tenancy with them, they wanted, the main concern, which I remember very well, their main concern was that they wanted me to exceed in my studies. They just said, okay, well, if you're not going to be happy in halls, then we need you to be somewhere where you are going to be happy. Even though I'd signed a contract and a tenancy with them, they wanted me, above all else, for my welfare to be okay, which I think says volumes about the university and the institution as a whole. And they wanted me to be okay. They weren't bothered really about money or, you know, kind of things like that. You know, they wanted to make sure that I was okay, and that to me speaks absolute volumes. It stretches miles for me, that, because not many universities would do that for you. Once you've signed a contract and a tenancy, it's pretty much like written in stone until that tenancy's run out, that you have to stay there. But obviously you can't predict these things, and you can't, you can't always make contingency plans for things like this happening. And it definitely was a scary time for me, but that was just me, and a lot of people enjoyed their time in Duchy House. But it's just the dynamics between different people, and everyone's different, like I say. Final question. Let me just get it up. How does the school support you in finding accommodation in the second year? I've answered that. Oh, and then it says a little bit more. I'm also a little nervous about doing oral presentation. I was wondering if it gets better over time. Easier over time, sorry. Okay, so yeah, for sure, oral presentations are nerve-wracking. I found them incredibly nerve-wracking, but that's because I have anxiety. And yeah, I mean, they do get easier over time, and as you get to know your class, which will change intermittently between each course that you do, I definitely feel that oral presentations are, when I was at Courtauld at least, and when I was at Somerset House studying, using the library and doing a transcript of your oral presentation definitely helped. I know that I would ask my friends to, I would use the library and then ask my friends to listen to my speech and what I had to say with my presentation, and like my opening speech for it. But you get inducted to all these kinds of things, and everyone is in the same boat as you. Everyone gets nervous doing a presentation. Some people, when I was in classes where all presentations were being done, particularly during seminars, which is where all the presentations take place, some people would speak really quietly, and you'd have to really listen. Some people would speak a bit too loud to try and hide the fact that they were nervous. Everyone's in the same boat, and everyone tries to deals with things, like I said before, in different ways. And the lecturers that I had, at least, they really tried to help you when you got nervous with your presentation. They would support you. They would add things in, like the associate lecturer I was mentioning for surrealism. I did an oral presentation for surrealism, and I got a couple of things wrong in that, sadly. And the lecturer let me finish speaking. He didn't kind of stop me mid-sentence and say, no, that's not right. He would let me finish speaking and then say, oh, well, that's interesting you say that. I can understand why you've said that. It seems plausible that you've said that. But sadly, that's not quite the case. This is what happened actually, as a matter of fact. And, maybe you can try and memorize it this way, or try and reword it this way. And the lecturers are there to help you. They're not, of course you are being assessed, you are doing a degree after all, but it's not cutthroat. It's not, people, when I was there at least, people want you to do well. And if you get nervous for your oral presentations, that's completely natural. And I know that when I got nervous, by the end of the presentation I was no longer nervous, because the lecturer was just so welcoming and kind. But that was just me anyway, and I hope that that's the case for you too. So I hope I've answered your questions in this video. Please, if you want to ask any more questions, I will definitely try and get back to you on the contact hours questions before. But just ask me again on Student Room, and I'll definitely try and help you out. And if you want to email me at some point, I'm sure I can try and arrange that. And I'm always have to make more videos as well. Or just comment on this video down below. Maybe that's probably a better way of doing things, so other people can see what I say to the questions that they might have as well. And yeah, I just hope I've helped you out, and that you're not too nervous. Everyone's experience of university is different, and I know that when I was at Courtauld I came across a lot of difficulties, extreme difficulties, but that was exceptional mitigating circumstances, and the university did as much as they could to help. And that, to me, is how you should assess a university, sort of in terms of the whole, in the bigger picture. It's not their fault that I had severe health problems whilst being there, that I didn't get on in halls as well as I would have imagined that I would have done in first year. It wasn't their fault. That was none of their fault at all. That was just my situation and kind of my process of going through university. And the way I assess Courtauld, the Courtauld Institute of Art, is how they dealt with those things and how they tried to help with me. how they tried to help me, sorry, and work with me, and they did their absolute best. They really, really did. And you're going to a great institution, you're in safe hands, and you will be fine. I can promise that you will be fine, and everything will be okay. So I hope I've helped you once again. I've said that already, sorry. And yeah, I will see you in the next video, guys. Bye!